I take a big sigh of relief. And welcome to the Pension Board's meeting of the 23rd of January. And I hope you all had a good festive season, and now we're all back to reality. So I'll move on to item number 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence.
Yes, apologies, sorry, from Geraint Thomas and Richie Prendergast.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, declarations of interest. And I will quote, members of the Fire and Rescue Authority are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare both orally and in writing any personal and or prejudicial interest in respect to matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 2000, the Fire and Rescue Authority Standing Orders and the Members' Code of Conduct. Do I have any declarations of interest? No?
No.
Right, that's fine. Right, I'll move on to item number 3, which is chairperson's announcements, and I have nothing to announce at this stage. Thank you. Item number 4, receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of October 2022. I'll go through these page by page. And if you have any issues, please could you raise them. Page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7. I will move these as a true record. Could I have a seconder? Nobody's got any issues to raise?
Yeah, I'll second.
A second? Thank you very much. Right, item number 5, which is the reports for decisions, which item review the key performance indicators, which I believe is Ian Taylor is taking us through that. Marcy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a standing item on the pension board agenda and provides board members with an update of the key performance measures, together with an update on some of the administrative activity during the period. If we move to page Appendix 1 on page 13, and please accept my apologies on some of this detail. I've noticed this morning within the comments field, there's some omissions there in terms of the number of cases that have been completed against the level of activity. So I'll work my way through those, and perhaps after the committee I will circulate an updated version, so that you have the complete and updated version. So the scheme, so the first table on page 13 is in relation to members under the Protected 92 scheme and transitional members. In November there, we can see that the team processed divorce estimates within 10 days, and it was 100%, so within target. When we move across to the it says no cases completed, which is clearly incorrect. We haven't updated that comments field. So on this occasion, during that period, there was 1 case completed. The same for the one below, preserved benefits processed within 10 days. 1 case was completed, and that was completed on target. Employers requested retirement estimates processed within 5 days. There were, if I just bear with me on that one, 92. So we have 4 cases that were processed within that period, all on time. And that was it in relation to that particular scheme. Moving on to page 15 on the slide there, still Appendix 2. The fire, so this is the 2006 scheme and transitional members. So again, there we have in the November stats, the number of divorce estimates processed within 10 days. We have 3 cases completed in there. Well, that's not, hasn't been updated. That was 1 case there. That should have been. The preserve benefits processed within 10 days, 100% on target, and we did 30 cases during that period, and they were all within the expected target. 100% retirement from active membership processed within 10 days. There were 2 cases there, and they were both completed on target. Reserve benefits into payment on retirement processed within 5 days. Again, we had 2 cases there, and they were both completed on target. And I believe it's finally there. No, there's one more. Transfers in processed within 10 days. We had 2 cases there, and they were both on target. 100% on target. And then finally, transfers out processed within 10 days. So when a member has transferred their benefit out, we had 1 case there, and that was undertaken 100% on target. So apologies there, Chair and members, in relation to the fact we hadn't updated those comments. But the positive thing really is that certainly the cases that were the activity during the period were within our expected standards that we've set out in our SLA with the fire service. So if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to the next appendix, Chair.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, if I can move on to page 17, appendix 2. The top table is our member self-serve statistics up to the 15th of December 22. And again, what this is, board will recall, this is our online portal that we have for firefighters to be able to go in and see the benefits that are accruing within their period, within their service, so they can activate that themselves. And there's some modular things within there that they're able to do some calculations. In status 1, so these are our active members. We have a high proportion of members that are assigned up to this benefit. We see this as a clear benefit that members can access and keep in touch with their benefits themselves, really, without us sort of nudging via letters or other forms of communication. It enables them to be able to do those things themselves. In relation to scheme member complaints, there's no formal complaints to report to board for this period. Some of the key admin activities, pension savings statements were issued prior to the statutory deadline of the 6th of October. This is to members who have exceeded the annual allowance during the period, where they have to make a tax declaration in relation to the amount they've exceeded on the annual allowance exercise. And that declaration has to be made under the self-assessment process with HMRC by the end of January, the actual period is. So that's underway, and we are having some queries through members and supporting that exercise. The immediate detriment cases continue to be processed, so we continue our dialogue with colleagues there at the fire headquarters and working through those cases. We continue to work closely with South Wales Fire and software provider in respect of the MacLeod remedy requirements. And then finally, just to note, the pension regulator return was submitted by the deadline of the 18th of November. So the regulator sets that deadline, and we've provided the scores below. And just to clarify for members, I guess some of the differences there. So we're required to provide scores against common or against data that we hold in respect of the scheme. So that's common data. So that's things like name, date of birth, start date in the pension fund, and other categories that sit within a sort of common data heading. And then scheme specific. So that's things like pensionable pay, service that a firefighter might have in the scheme, the different aspects of the scheme. So that that data has to be measured annually and provided to the pension regulator. So you can see against the three schemes there, in terms of our compliance, it's certainly up there high in the 90s. There will always be timing issues in terms of having a complete 100% across the board in relation to the data where it just hasn't come in at that point in time, a particular field. This is quite normal, I suppose, these figures across other pension schemes. So nothing to be concerned about there. They are high percentages, and as I said, we submitted them to the regulator on time. So that was it from me, Chair. I'm happy to take any further questions from board.
Does any member wish to raise anything?
I could please, if possible. Thanks, Ian. I suppose it's just a question, really, with regards to the statistics that are set out in the Appendix 1 on 13. Do you think with the complex nature of the McLeod remedy, and also as we're coming to O'Brien, do we need to review or make sure that we're capturing everything we need to capture in those figures and the data, just in so much that they all appear really good, the figures, but I get fed back, and I know it's a self-selecting sample because no one rings me and says, hey, everything was great then, you know. People tend to ring their union when things are tricky or haven't gone according to plan. So I do get some feedback where that happens, but I don't necessarily see it in those statistics, if you get me. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, it certainly does. And I think for me, this is us focusing on the key service standards as set out in our SLA. Now, we used, when I sat down and we agreed the SLA with the fire service, we mirror really the same statistics we use within the local government scheme as well. We believe they are the key statistics when you look at, you know, the turnaround times and the types of requests. That's not to say there isn't going to be communication and other tasks that we have directly with the firefighters around some issues and timelines, and you know, there have been occasions, I guess, when we've reported these stats where sometimes, due to the complexity, we haven't been able to meet some of those actual targets. It's just, I would say it's a good set of stats at the moment. Indicators, they are just purely indicators. There is complexity around McLeod, as we all know, and there will be challenges. So we may experience a drop off on some of these indicators at a point in time. We will endeavour to try and maintain it, because that's what, you know, that's what we're engaged for the membership. But what I'm saying, I suppose, we don't measure every item of contact we may have with our firefighters, and perhaps some of those selective cases, I suppose, that are having those discussions. I guess we have to look at it in the round, really, but we certainly don't, you know, we don't hit the 100%. We don't hit the 100% every time, and it's usually down to complexity.
Thanks, Ian.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, it was helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to raise anything or may point out anything? No? Right, the recommendations are that we note the data as of Appendix 1, but also we have to take on board the corrections as outlined by Ian. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ian, for your presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, move on to item number 6, which is the firefighters' pensions remedy age discrimination. And I believe Alison will be taking us through that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Morning, members, and morning to Ronnie Alexander as well, who's also approving the meeting from our Standards Committee. This is a standard item, and members will note that the content of this report has remained quite static over the last few meetings. And the reason I've kept it in this format is because of the complexities around McLeod and the journey McLeod has taken. I just wanted to draw members to some new elements of the report in particular, and just give a bit more of a brief around those. Since we've been, so just for the benefits of Ronia, I guess, we have been processing category 1 but not category 2 cases. And what I mean by category 1 and category 2 retirement cases are, category 1 cases are those that are deemed to be in scope for immediate detriment. These are current employees who have put their notice in to retire from service, and they are people who will have fallen within the scope of the McLeod remedy arrangements. And we are one of a few fire and rescue services across the UK who are processing category 1 cases. Category 2 cases, as defined through the McLeod directions, are those people who have already retired at the point of making the policy decision. So Fire Authority made the policy decision to implement category 1 cases at its July meeting back in 2021, and we started processing cases from the October of 21. We agreed at Fire Authority that we would not process category 2 cases, and the reason for that is because of the complexities around tax, national insurance, contributions, etc. And all of these aspects will be clearly defined as work progresses with the Treasury and Home Office and others in relation to the regulations following the McLeod outcome. So what this report tries to do is just capture the journey of McLeod, share some of the key decision timelines and milestones, and draw to the attention of members anything that's new that's happened since the last report at the last meeting. So I'm going to whiz you through to paragraph 2.9. And just while I've got the floor on the sort of decisions that Fire Authority have made on this, just really to thank Ian and his team. I know I thanked Catherine last time we met, but actually the work that the teams have done to process category 1 cases, has been tremendous. The sort of interaction between the administrator and the service on the detail, the very fine technical detail around category 1 cases is very complex. So just really thank you, Ian, to you and the team for your support on this. It has been a journey that we've undertaken together, and it's, as I say, we are one of the few fire and rescue services who have been processing these cases. So thank you. So taking you through to para 2.9, the focus for the update on this report is our common strategy. So as well as an update on the case numbers, which I'll share with you in a second, but paragraph 2.9 just highlights some recent developments. Following the McLeod outcome, the government has reached an out-of-court arrangement with the unions on compensation to injury to feelings. Now, this impacts claimants only, as I understand it. So anyone who's a claimant is going to be entitled to an amount of money. This was settled out of court a few months ago. I've issued some comms to staff on this, but we're currently waiting for further guidance in terms of the amounts and the arrangements for payment. In terms of the payment approach, my understanding is that we will pay through payroll and then we will claim the money back through government. And just to confirm, in terms of funding, government will pick up the cost for the compensation payments. So that's English, UK Gov and Welsh Government. We've also had quite a few queries from people around the CPI rates at the moment and the impact on pensions. And there is an update further on in the pack, which I'll highlight to you in a minute, from the LGA on the CPI increases. But the impact for people in service, so people who are currently still employed, is obviously minimal at the moment. The real impact here is where an individual who is aged 55 or over and is in receipt of their pension, they will receive the increase that is reflective of the current CPI rate from age 55. If an individual retires before the age 55, they don't receive the impact immediately. And what happens is there's a sort of an accumulation of CPI rates, and at age 55, the sort of what's due to them is calculated and owed and paid out. So that's a sort of untechnical way of trying to describe the impact of CPI on people in receipt of a pension. It is covered later in the pack as we work through the LGA Fire Pensions Bulletin. So I'll just pause on that point and just check around the screen and in the room that everyone's still with me. In 2.10, the other aspect of our comms strategy has been to work with the Government Actuaries Department on a modeller. So this is essentially a calculator that will allow people employed in service currently who are thinking about retiring, what their indicative pension retirement figures look like. So the modeller is currently undertaking user testing across Wales. We've purchased the modeller on an all Wales basis, and we've got our technical leads currently plugging in some test data to see what turns out. We've worked with GAD, so it is reflective of the fire schemes in Wales. There is a UK modeller which is reflective of the English fire pension schemes as well. The aim is that we will finish user testing towards the end of this week. We will run a show and tell for our rep body members. So Gareth will probably be invited, as well as anyone else who may want to see it, just to have a short show and tell before we put it out to members across the service. It will be placed on our external website, and there will be a password protection to it, at least initially. Because of the All Wales arrangement, we have to channel interest from across Wales into a single point. And sort of from a technical perspective, the advice that we've had is to put on the external web with a password protection, at least initially, and then we'll channel people into that link so that they can then loop in and have a look at the modeller and check their figures. The figures are indicative, so they are not a confirmed final set of figures. They don't take account of nuances throughout an individual's career. They're quite straightforward and are based on pretty much straightforward cases. But they are a good sort of indicator for anyone who's looking to retire. So I'll just pause there. The expectations, I say, user testing to be completed by the end of this week, comms out next week, but in between we'll do a show and tell so that our rep bodies can have a look at it as well. I'll just pause there just to take any questions. Dan.
Well, super obvious question, I'm sure it's going to happen anyway, but as you said, obviously it's only indicative numbers, and it says from a pack as well. is it going to be made very clear to members? Obviously, that this is obviously not the final potential income they're going to have for a pension, and obviously it can't be taken as that.
Yes, yes, thank you, Dan. At the front of the modeler, there is a disclaimer that says the figures are indicative and they should not be used as a firm and final suite of figures. So yeah, we've made sure that that's in there, and as well in the comms, we've been quite clear that they are not final confirmed figures for individuals, but just to give them an idea, an indication. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so I think we've explored the GAD modeler because we were trying to solve a problem which was a potential for a lack of information for scheme users with the complexity of the McLeod thing, right? So once we get this modeler in place now, I think as a local pension board, we need to make an assessment as to whether that solved that problem, which I'm sure it will, but we need to check that right at the end.
Yeah, sure. Perhaps we could have something on the agenda for the next meeting to check usage and take feedback from colleagues, particularly you, Gareth, by the FBU.
Yeah, that'd be super. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something under 2.9. That phrase, injury to feelings, I've never sort of come across that before. I don't know if you can elaborate a bit more on it. Or is it difficult?
I'm not sure I can exactly, other than I know that claimants or anyone who's considering being a claimant was asked to submit a narrative around why they felt that they should be awarded compensation on the basis of injury to feelings. Obviously, it's quite difficult because individual people have got different circumstances in terms of why they feel that they should be awarded compensation. So there were, from my memory of looking at the claims, there were a multitude of different rationales, so to speak, from personal circumstances surrounding life events through to the impact from a mental health and well-being perspective. So
that could cover discrimination.
Discrimination, yes. Yeah. So there was a range of reasons in the claimant list.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's just a phrase I've never seen before.
No. I think it's a legal term, is the way.
Is it?
I think so.
Yes.
It must
yes.
be. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that, Alison.
Yeah, and I believe there are a few hundred claimants across Wales, so in the region of 250, I believe, across Wales.
Yeah, my understanding is also that the settlement that has been reached out of court at the moment is only dealing with one cohort of people, and there is a second cohort of people that still being discussed.
Yes.
Yet to be resolved.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Just to flag also Appendix 1 before I close. This gives you a flavour of the numbers of cases that we've been processing. So, as I mentioned up front of this item, between October 21 and March, so first financial year, we processed 8 immediate detriment cases. These are Category 1 cases. And then between April 22 and we've stated March 23 because we can actually predict forward, because we have a 3-month notice period for firefighters, that the numbers in this financial year are 30. So quite significant numbers, I'd say, when you look across other FRSs. Some haven't got off the starting blocks, others have done a few. So I just wanted to flag that as just looking board appraised of the magnitude and kind of the relationships across with RCT. So so far working well, I would say.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Sorry, I did just have one last question.
Yes, no problem.
Just in respect of McLeod now, I think we've been aiming at October 23 as the date in which legislation is laid to finally remedy it. When might we have some idea? Will we start working on that from that point, or might we get documents prior to that?
So my understanding at the moment is Welsh Government are working with the lawyers and UK Government on the suite of they're called definition documents. They're like the policy
Okay.
groundwork documents. They are not for public sharing at the moment, but they have set up a working group with the technical leads across each service in Wales. So I would see, as soon as we can share information and detail around those,
Yeah.
we would obviously bring them under this item because it is a standard item for the agenda to this board. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to raise anything? No? Oh, thank you, Alison, for that. The recommendation is that members note the report. Agreed? Thank you. Right, now item number 7, which is the pensions regulator returns, which Alison
Yes.
presented as well.
Thank you, Chair. So, as Ian referred to in his report, the returns that were completed by November, this report just shares those returns with you for information. So, from a transparency perspective, you can see the information that we have submitted back to the pensions regulator. What I've included in the report is at Appendix A, a quick guide to the information that must be provided to the pensions regulator, and then the reports themselves, so the actual detail that we have sent back. The detailed report starts on page 37, so in Appendix B, and what you will see in there are your individual names, contact details via South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, so there's no personal detail in here, and the actual return data for each pension scheme. So what we have here is a return for the 1992 pension scheme, the 2007 scheme and the 2015 scheme. And towards the end of each report, there is a capture. So I'm just looking at page 43, for example, the common data and the scheme-specific data that Ian mentioned is captured in the record-keeping section of the reports. So quite useful for you as a board just to see what information we are submitting back to the pensions regulator, and for you to be aware that your details are in here, but obviously contactable via South Wales Fire. So just really that report is for information. Happy to take any comments, questions or observations. We did query one aspect, which was the chair's details in the report, because, and I'm just going to find the section.
I'm referred to as an other.
Yes. So under the chair's details, we have pension board member type as other, and then chair of pension board, yes. So Kim said it sort of only gave you the option of everyone else has employer written down as their.
I just thought it was a bit strange, but that's all right.
Gareth, you're a member.
Does anybody have any questions about these reports?
No.
No? Okay. Well, the recommendation is that members local returns which are shared for information and awareness purposes. Agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right then, on to item number 8, which is publication updates and information, which is quite lengthy, and Alison will go through.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So what I'm going to do is the usual, just romp through the bulletins that are attached to this report, just to highlight some of the updates and information here that would be of interest to board members. I'm just going to start with taking you through to page 77, which is the first bulletin number 60. The top of page 77, there is a reference to age discriminatory eligibility, and these are the guiding principles that we've been using to process our category 1 cases. There is a guide to eligibility fact sheet, which is worth you having a look at. We have cross-referenced the work that we've done against the fact sheet So it's just to give board assurance that as these updates come through, we are checking them, we are reading them, we are looking at the guidance documents provided by LGA around processing the immediate detriment and the McLeod cases that we talked about earlier in this meeting. Taking you then through to abatement, which is on the same page, just to flag, abatement is something that we haven't engaged with as a service most recently, mainly because our recruitment pool and process is quite active and fluid and live, and we have been able to keep the input or the throughput coming through our pool approach. So what we've been doing with recruitment is every year for the last 3 years, we've held a recruitment process for firefighters. We've held a pool of successful candidates of around 100 people. So we're feeding our exits of people retiring with new recruits coming in on a regular basis. So we haven't needed to use the abatement guidance, which is around allowing people to access their pension and keeping them in service. So, but what it is, I think for us, is one to watch, because if we do reach a position where we don't need to go out and recruit, it's a policy approach that we may want to consider and discuss in the future. And there is a suite of guidance notes, and I think Cumbria have shared their policy there. So again, it's just for board awareness, not something that we are doing currently, but it may be a conversation that we'll agendarise for a future
We've
date.
been very successful with recruitment.
Yes.
I don't know whether it's across the border that fire authorities are struggling to recruit, I don't know.
Yeah, we took some decisions probably a couple of years ago around looking at our exit profile, so our retirement profile, and we did see a spike in March of last year, where I think people were feeling that with the new pension scheme coming in, new 2015 scheme from the 1st of April, it was a better choice to leave the organisation. So we did see a spike because we'd had that recruitment pool every year. We managed that spike, I think, probably fairly well. And yeah, I think we're probably one of few who are sort of running annual campaigns.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so page 78, just wanted to flag electric vehicles and salary sacrifice. What the note is saying there is it's for each FRA to determine whether electric vehicles are part of your salary sacrifice scheme or not. We actually have salary sacrifice that includes electric vehicles. So I just wanted to flag that. For some reason, LGA have had lots of queries around approach, and it does say in terms of the application of salary sacrifice around the impact that the member should continue to pay contributions on the amount before the deduction and receive the full value of their pensionable pay. So that's the link with electric vehicles and salary sacrifice. I'm going to move us on then to page 79. The Pensions Ombudsman, towards the bottom of that page, has published its corporate plan. Again, I think as a board, it's quite useful just to see what the Pensions Ombudsman are reporting on. There are some quite useful information and data in there, and you can glean some of their ambition around reducing waiting times. I know from my own experience, when cases go into the Pensions Ombudsman, there has been quite a time lag in them reviewing cases, but they do share their ambition in their plan. They talk about resourcing as well, and that they are looking to increase their resourcing arrangements, and they have set out a set of priorities and KPIs. So again, it's useful information for us as a board to see the direction of travel for the Pensions Ombudsman and perhaps have a discussion if we so feel the need. Page 80, we've talked previously about the pensions dashboard, and this is the second item on that page. So halfway down the page, pensions dashboard programme. What we've talked about previously, and it's just again for board's awareness and to keep an eye on the progress and what's happening here. For fire schemes, there has been an agreement that fire schemes would be onboarded to the pensions dashboard programme towards the end of the sort of milestone time plan, for the reason that fire is embroiled in resolving MacLeod. There's also, as Gareth mentioned, Matthews O'Brien coming down the tracks, which is another aspect that we need to work through. And the feeling was, from a fire perspective, that for members to log into a dashboard that didn't have accurate data, it would not discredit, but perhaps not provide confidence in the data that's in the dashboard. So fire schemes will be onboarded towards the end of the programme. So just to make you aware of that.
I just wanted to say about the, it's good to see you coming on board with the prevention strategy, the scams on pensions.
Yes, yes.
Because there's an awful lot of it going on at the moment, unfortunately.
It's really quite worrying, isn't
I know, very worrying, yes.
I'm just going to whip you across then to page 89 if you can, just to flag. My screen will move fast enough. Again, immediate detriment in the following bulletin, just to say that the Home Office and are working with the Fire Brigade Union around making sure that the guidance is updated, and there are conversations that are continuing with the unions on that. The next item is maybe of interest, potential industrial action on the same page. This is around the fact that members of the fire schemes can purchase back any pension should they participate in industrial action, and the arrangements therein. Sorry, Gareth, were you going to say something?
Only will, if we get to that point, will we communicate that out to scheme users and,
yes,
and the vehicle through which they can do it?
Yeah, yes. And this will be played into the industrial action plan, and that the service will be undertaking a part of those comms as well.
Okay, thank you.
Page 92, again, for board's interest more than anything, this is Saab England. So, oh, sorry, Dan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I do understand, obviously, members can purchase, obviously, their contributions back for days on a strike. Can I just for clarity that, because when I was reading that, my understanding was, obviously, for employers contributing wouldn't be paid for when they're on strike. Is that true? So even if they do then obviously purchase their contributions during the strike period, if there is one, they would still lose the employer payments for that period. And if that's true, that needs obviously be made clear to them as well.
Yes, that's correct, Dan. The guidance note talks about the scheme employer may also require that the member pays the amount of employer contributions that would that the scheme employer would otherwise be required to pay. So we'll need to make that absolutely clear in any comms. I'm looking at Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris is nodding.
Yeah, in order to buy back the service, you've effectively got to pay the whole of the amount in.
Thank you, Chris. So, page 92, this is the Scheme Advisory Board England. We have a Scheme Advisory Board Wales that is meeting in a couple of weeks, and I generally feed back the discussion at the Wales meeting. I just thought I'd flag the English meeting, and there's a note of the meeting attached to this update. Quite useful and a lot of synergy with the Wales SAB meeting. So topic of conversation in this meeting was scheme valuations, Matthews O'Brien and MacLeod. So very topical issues, and the issues that we have been discussing today as well. So good to just have a look at those meeting notes if you can. Page 95. Just to kind of flag really, actually it starts on the bottom of the previous page. So page 94 it starts, apologies, public sector exit payments. This has been rumbling around for quite a few years. Now, there is a consultation out on public sector exit payments, but I think the underlying point for this board to be aware of is the criteria. So what this update is saying is that the government is proposing to introduce an approval process, additional reporting requirements, but it says if implemented, the proposals would apply to all bodies that are classified as central government. This does not note include local authorities or bodies under devolved administration. Following discussion with the Home Office, we can confirm that the definition of local authorities expands to the following, so FRAs, FRSs, and a few other bodies as well. So just to flag that there's a consultation out, it looks as though it won't include local authorities, and we are defined within that description of a local authority.
That's really interesting. Are you anticipating that if we were in scope of that, that it would affect pension payments as part of an exit payment, or?
Yes, I think so. It would be pension implications and capping of any exit lump sums, I suppose. So I know a previous iteration of the consultation talked about capping exit payments to say £95,000.
Right.
So yes, so that would impact the agreement.
Yeah, and it would also impact the legislation that covers the
Yes.
pension schemes, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So interesting times. 104, just to take you through there. We've just talked about Matthews, and I refer to it as Matthews O'Brien. The nuance here is Matthews is the term that English government use. O'Brien is the term that Welsh government is using to describe this piece of work. So in a nutshell, this impacts part-time workers, and it expands the scope of a previous exercise, which expands in itself the scope of applicability to anyone who was employed in a fire and rescue service prior to 2000, and essentially they are now able to claim pensionability for their employment. So this will be an exercise that we will have to conduct. As I say, this is referred to in Wales as O'Brien. What this update says is that anyone who feels they are impacted by Matthews O'Brien should make themselves known to their relevant FRA. So essentially what this has resulted in is a pro forma being placed onto the LGS or the LGA website, where individuals can go fill in the pro forma and say, I think I'm affected, and send it into their fire and rescue service. That doesn't trigger any immediate action, but what it does is it places on file a list of people who, when the exercise gets implemented towards the end of this year, we will use to cross-map their eligibility. So it's just to flag that. There's another exercise coming down the tracks. So we've got McLeod, which is remedy and age discrimination, and then we've got O'Brien, which is expanding the scope for part-time workers to access pension based on their service. That's that one.
Did you want to say?
Oh, really quickly, just to confirm that I know rep bodies communicating with their members based on that being published on the
Yes.
LGA, that their members should go through that process. Can you confirm? I think we as a service also communicated with Scheme?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did, and we have already got a handful of pro formas being received. So members are submitting them to us
Brilliant.
in preparation for the exercise.
Thank you.
Good.
Yes.
Anybody else want?
Okay. Okay. Page 105, and I was going to flag this as possibly something that we could pick up through the South Wales approach. Halfway down page 105, there's some workforce and pension statistics. Now, this is an output of a suite of questions that were submitted to FRAs in England. So this didn't apply to Wales, but I think through our South Wales arrangement, we could propose a question to South Wales around data that they may hold, and how is that being translated and shared out. So that this is useful data for us as a board, but it's English based. So just to flag that and to say that we'll pick up the Wales perspective with South Wales. That's good. Page 113. So we're moving quite quickly. I mentioned CPI earlier. Second item from the top of that page, the update refers to the CPI rate of inflation for September 22 as 10.1%, and confirms government policy, which is in recent years has been to base increases under the Pensions Act and revalorisation of pension accounts on the rate of CPI. So the final statement there says we await confirmation from government the revaluation and pensions increases that will apply to deferred pensions and pensions in payment at April 23 will be at 10.1%. So just flagging that connection with the previous update. On to 126, and we're on the home straight now, so just a couple left to flag with you. This is around injury to feelings. Sorry, not injury to feelings. Oh yeah, injury to feelings. This confirms the previous discussion we had around in the paper on McLeod, the comms that we've put out, and we're now in a sort of holding space waiting for further information on processing the injury to feelings cases. But that confirms that the hearing that was scheduled has been vacated due to resettlement out of court. Also on that page, just at the top, age discrimination. So back to McLeod, ill health, retirement. So what this is asking us to do is just review our cases of ill health, because we're a case that straddled the transition from the 92 scheme to the 2015 or new arrangements from April 22, that we should look at cases that straddle those arrangements and be offering the best arrangement that we can for the individual. So the individual is essentially getting an ill health retirement statement in the 92 scheme and also in 2015, and the best will be applied. It's also asking us to keep an eye on our ill health retirement cases and just review them on the basis of emerging sort of guidance, regs, etc. as we go forward. On to 130, and I think this may be my final 130. I just wanted to flag on this page the TPOs, so the Pensions Ombudsman fact sheets. These just confirm the approach taken when they receive a direction and following the determinations. The interesting point for me is we can appeal a Pensions Ombudsman decision, but it has to be on the basis of a fact of law. So that's my takeaway from that update. And decisions have to be appealed within 28 days. I think probably the only other one that I would share with you at this point is page 133. There's some updates here on the autumn statement. Just confirming no changes to annual allowance, no changes to lifetime allowance and tax thresholds. And I think that would probably be it for flagging with you. No, I'm just going to flag one other. Page 144. This is one to watch for us as a board. Retained firefighter employment tribunal pension claims. So this is one where this talks about service as a retained employee and the aggregation of service if they have other contracts, so if they're a whole-time employee as well. So I think it's one to watch for us because there will be a determination on this one, but the claims are going through the system at the moment. So that's it, but hopefully that has been useful, and it does share some highlights that I think are quite useful for the board. If you haven't read them, just to kind of get your head around them and keep abreast of the world of pensions.
It's not easy, is it?
No.
It used to be. We used to have one pension scheme and no legal cases. And you could do the maths around the mess table, but it is so complex now. I really worry.
It can be very confusing as well, jumping from one to another and that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you, Alison, very much for that.
That's
Does
okay.
anybody else raise anything with Alison before? No? No? Well, the recommendations are that the members review and note the attached publications which are shared for information and awareness. So I'm sure we're all aware now. Is that agreed with everybody?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, we move on to item number 9, which is the forward work programme, and these are all listed.
Yes, just to update on this, Chair. There are 2 items on the forward work programme that I was just going to pick up on. So for this meeting, there is an update report from the Scheme Advisory Board. Generally, I would give a verbal update on this item. However, the last Scheme Advisory Board Wales was held in July, so I gave an update at the last meeting. So just to confirm, there's no update for today,
Right.
because the last update I gave covered the last meeting. However, to also flag, there is a Scheme Advisory Board happening next week, so I will update at the next local pension board on that
That's
one.
fine, yeah.
And I also just wanted to flag the other item, which is a training session for members. What I would like to do is just grab the floor for a second on this one. What we asked members to do was just to review a training session that Welsh Government ran back towards the end of last year on, well, it was a sort of an overarching training session on, latest developments in a number of areas, including MacLeod. And they also do a sort of top-up training for members on the role of a local pension board member, who the scheme manager is and that sort of stuff. So it's a standard sort of training session. I just wanted to check in with members on that point, whether they have had a chance to review that training package that was shared and whether there are any reflections. So this is, I guess, covering that training session, just really an open floor for members to give us any feedback following that review of the training session. Just for clarity, we couldn't field anyone to attend the session. The Welsh Government sent out the training pack and the recording of the session to us. So we have shared that with board in the hope that, you as board members were able to review the training session itself. And I think probably there are a couple of areas for me, if I may, while I got the floor, just to flag. So just to say that one of the, if you looked into the link, there was a recording that shared the particular training session and the slides. So it took you through the slides and it showed the conversation. I think around 30 minutes into the one recording, there was a particular piece around the scheme manager's role and the local pension board role and the members' role. It talked about LPB members ensuring that they had sufficient knowledge in order to be a member, and that their role was to provide feedback and challenge as members, and to review processing and processes, sorry. It also raised a point around having access to information that could be used to support the scheme manager. The scheme manager is the fire authority. So just by way of sort of some reflections, I guess, on the LPB role, and you know, our members, having viewed that training session, feeling comfortable with the direction of travel of this local pension board, and if there are any particular learning points that members would like to cover off in this session now, that we could form into a future training session. And I think just to reinforce, you know, the slides in the training session talked about the board assisting the scheme manager. So the scheme manager is the fire authority in areas such as compliance with regs, the regulations, and providing effective and efficient governance. So the scheme manager's role is to comply with regulations and to provide effective and efficient governance, and the local pension board role is to support the scheme manager in doing those things. So I'm going to pause there. Hopefully you've all had a chance to review the slides and the training session, and then bring any feedback to this session now. If you haven't had a chance to review the feedback then, or the sessions, I'll take the feedback separately if that's okay. And I'll pause.
I'll hold my hand up now. I've only got halfway through it.
Okay, no worries.
Look down.
Yeah, I was correct. So there were 3 presentation videos about obviously pensions, like our Oxfam ones. You sent him a recent email about a week ago, a couple of weeks ago. I thought that, again, it went in a lot of detail, and I thought obviously it was quite interesting, obviously, with changes happening with, obviously, for codes in particular, and obviously it just shows how complex pensions have become.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you know, hopefully the new codes do make it a bit less complex, at least on the regulation. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I wondered, thanks, Chair. I wondered if maybe it would be worth us, we talk about the complexities of the schemes often and the potential risk there, but whether it would be worth us as a local pension board maybe seeing if there's anything we can add to the forward work programme where we can make a real assessment of that, like a health check. I mean, I'm sure everything is okay, but if we are to be that critical friend to the fire authority, the scheme manager, then maybe we could do that. But it would, I suppose we would need some help with the legislative side of that too, wouldn't we?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Gareth. And I'm wondering whether we could share the forward work plan as we prepare for the new municipal year with the board, and perhaps take feedback at that point, because we know McLeod is coming.
Yeah.
We know Matthews O'Brien is coming. We know compensation is a thing. So there will be things that we know now that we will want sight of, and perhaps some assurance and transparency around as well.
Because it might be that we find that we feel that more resources in the pension department, for example, would be beneficial, and that could be a recommendation, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant.
When would our next meeting be? Would it be prior to the AGM?
So we have now concluded all our meetings for this year.
Yeah.
Generally, the next meeting would be around July time. Hannah and
Because we
Sarah.
could have new members on there.
Yes,
as well, so,
yes, we
yeah.
could. So as we sit down and prepare for the new year, it would have to be done, as you say, Chair, after the new pension
Yes.
board has been constructed. But yeah.
Yeah.
But there will be some I'm guessing some people who will remain on the pension board who don't have to go through the elected process, if that makes
We
sense.
never know what's around the corner.
No.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I take on board what you suggest as good idea though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, the last item is to consider any items of business the chairperson deems urgent, part 1 and 2. I've got nothing urgent. I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that. Oh, thank you very much for all your attendance. You know, it's been a good meeting. Difficult meeting, but good. Yeah. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay, thank you for that.